the marketing model has a lot to do with it. And the bitch of it is that even if you are perfect, if your business is perfect, you've never had a dispute, never had a refund, you still sit in potentially an industry that has an issue. And so the people that are looking at risk and controlling risk, if they're not really good at what they do, it's very easy for them to just do a sweeping change and say, hey, we're done with your industry.
Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets, where each week Joe chats with world-class entrepreneurs to find out the key principles, strategies, and processes that lie behind their outstanding achievements. Now, your host, the no bullshit serial entrepreneur, Joe Troyer.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Troyer, and welcome to Show Me the Nuggets. Today, I have on longtime friend Brad Weimert. And we're going to be talking about all things merchant account and ultimately protecting your cash flow and mitigating risk when it comes to merchant accounts. I got some doozy stories about merchant accounts. I'm sure a lot of you guys do as well. And Brad's always been the guy that I turn to say, hey, what do I do about this? How do I protect myself against that? And I really wanted to bring him here to do each and every one of you guys a service. So without further ado, Brad, man, welcome officially to the show.
Thank you, sir. It's been good to see you a couple of times recently. And when you said that, I just remembered, I think the first time we hung out in New York years ago with Kevin Wilkie.
That is
also a snowy experience. Yeah,
I was trying to remember. I thought it was maybe trafficking conversion, but I think you're right. It was with Kevin Wilkie in New York City. Yeah, long time ago. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And our roots like intersect. Before that, we were both with Cutco and Vector Marketing and kind of had a role in there in our lives, and John Rulin and some other people that we still go way back with. So it's cool hanging out, getting to see you at all these events and stuff is really cool. So give us a little bit of background before we talk about Easy Pay Direct. We talk about everything that you're doing these days. How'd you get into this digital marketing world? That's kind of where I like to kick things off.
Yeah, very deliberately. When people, every so often I'll poll everybody I know and ask them to help me get more self-awareness of myself. And when I do that, the two words that tend to pop up routinely are deliberate and disciplined. And I have my own struggles with both of those things, but it leads to how I got started with Easy Pay Direct, which is I grew up really delinquent. I got arrested probably 12 times before the age of 18. And then I found a sales job, which was commission only, selling knives, basically door to door. Not quite, but basically. And at some point through that journey, I hit the point where I thought, this is like all encompassing. All of my energy is going into beating everybody. I need to stop this thing and I need to think about the future. And so I had gone like halfway through college at that point, and it took me, 4 years to do that halfway. And I thought, all right, the next year I'm going to get as much done as I can. Like I'm going to do 18 credit hours a semester. I'm not going to stop during the summer. I'm just going to go and I'm going to keep selling, but I'm not going to do it for competition. I'm just going to do it for money, ignore everything else. And while I do that, I'm going to build a list of things that are important to me. And that list was things like no cap on income, recession resistant, tech focused, residual by nature. One of the big ones was building a network through the process. And as I assessed kind of opportunities in the future, I found credit card processing. And it fit all of those checklist items, with the exception of, I had one other checklist item, which was the ability to make a lot of money fast. Epic fail on that front. Credit card processing is a very slow build. But I did a bunch of real estate investing to get me through that. So that's kind of the fundamentals of what brought me to today.
Hey, real quick, before we dive into the rest of this episode, real quick, I promise my team and I would like to personally thank you, our audience, yes, you listening right now, for all the amazing support that you guys have been giving the podcast. The growth has been just crazy. And I want you to know that we're super, super appreciative to you. So we've been trying to think of something cool that we could do to give back to our audience, to give back to you guys. And I think we've come up with something that's really, really unique. It's something that's special. So here's the thing. The team here at Digital Triggers, my own little team here, has decided that we're going to give away a gift pack that includes our top of the line resources to sell SEO, right? We know that so many of you guys out there are agencies. This is going to literally give you contracts, proposals, pitches, scripts that you guys can use, outreach templates. It's a pack of assets and collateral for anybody wanting to sell SEO services or marketing services to any type of business, not just local businesses. This has been used to land e-com deals, all kinds of deals out there. So if you didn't hear that, let me make it a little more clear. Okay, our Digital Triggers family is giving you some of the best of the content and the resources that we've ever put together, absolutely free, just for listening to the podcast. Okay, all that you have to do is go to digitaltriggers.io/gift pack. And you are good to go, folks. It is that simple. We'll make sure that this page is up and ready for you guys by the time this episode airs. And with that being said, let's get back to the episode. All right, that was all right. I think that went okay.
Man, when you talk about putting on your checklist, building a network in the process, if somebody asked me, Joe, like who's some of the best people in the industry at building a network, man, I would definitely put your name on that list. So kudos to you. I think you've definitely, for validation for yourself, you've definitely done a great job building a network. I mean, if somebody arrives in Austin and wants to know everybody overnight, I mean, I would be like, yeah, you got to talk to Brad.
I appreciate that. Well, you know what's interesting about it is it was some stroke of I can't call it brilliance or genius. It just stupid luck. As 26-year-old Brad was thinking through these items, but the catalyst was I sold knives for 6 years, and at the end I had 3,000 Mrs. Jones.
Yeah,
I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with 3,000 Mrs. Jones? Like, what do you do with that list? And actually, you mentioned John Rulin, and one of the things that helped move me down this path was he was selling to business owners, and he was selling them corporate gifts. And I saw that little bit, and I thought, man, I want to know the business owners. And to date, the single most valuable asset that I have in my life are relationships, and a lot of them have come through the lens of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So let's transition now. Let's start to talk about how did Easy Pay Direct, your merchant services company, actually end up coming together then?
Yeah, so when I built that list, actually another person that ends up being in our ecosystem quite often, Pete Vargas, introduced me to a credit card processing company. And it kind of, I think at the time, it was a 1099 gig, and that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to sell stuff. And I didn't know anything about the space. And so I met this guy, Sean Kramer, out in Phoenix, and I was a 1099 for his company. And so I went out and I was kind of, same thing I knew. I was knocking on doors, trying to walk into businesses and close accounts. And throughout the course of about 2.5 years, e-commerce had taken off. This is kind of 06, 07, 08. And I had friends that were starting internet-based businesses. And so I would try to do their credit card processing through Sean Kramer's company, through this company in Phoenix. And all the accounts kept getting declined. And they were like, oh, no, they can't do that. And I was like, that, to me, I thought that doesn't make any sense. Obviously they're going to be able to accept credit cards. Why does this company not want to do it? So I'd go and set up a contract with a new credit card processing company as a 1099. And then they'd get declined. And then I'd set up a new one. And throughout the course of about 3 years, I got into this place where I thought, there's this risk issue in credit card processing. There's this thing happening. And I wasn't clear on it, but I was kind of beating my head against the wall trying to figure it out. And at the time, I had built up a residual of about 10 grand a month, which was enough to sustain life and, live. And a client of mine at the time was selling real estate education products, doing seminars, a mastermind group, a monthly membership. And he asked me to partner with him and run the company. And I thought, okay. So I took a salary and equity in that and kind of pressed pause on the credit card processing. And the nice thing about it is it's residual, right? So it kept moving. And then I just hustled for about 2 years with him. The partnership was riddled with challenges. He's an interesting cat, but what it taught me was a ton about selling information, how that model works, and also the risks inside of that model relative to merchant accounts. And so I got to see it firsthand as a business owner. So when that partnership dissolved, I functionally launched EasyPay Direct, started building software, started hiring people. And it was really with the idea of, hey, how do we effectively create a fast, safe way to accept merchant account or to accept payments when you're in these models that end up having chargebacks or end up being called risky by credit card processing companies.
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. So EasyPay Direct started about 2012. You guys fast forward today, 20 plus people strong. Obviously, you guys are a dominant force in our ecosystem, in our industry. Who do you guys kind of serve now? Who's the audience? Who do you guys work with? Somebody's looking for a merchant account, and they're thinking, hey, maybe I can talk to Brad. Who is kind of your ideal target market these days?
Yeah, I mean, broad stroke, we define it as people where the card is not present, meaning that you don't have a physical credit card machine that somebody's putting a physical credit card into. So card not present businesses that are doing 1 to 100 million a year. That's kind of the broad stroke. We work with lots of businesses that are, $500,000 a year or a little smaller, but we provide the most value once you get to that place and beyond.
Perfect. So you hit on something, you talked a little bit about the high risk merchant. Is that really defined, Brad? Is it as easy as saying just taking cards over the internet? Like if you're in that bucket, is that automatically high risk? I know when I've gone to get merchant accounts, I'm always classified as high risk, even when I'm able to show a good history and low refund rates, low chargeback rates, etc.
Yeah, that's a huge question. But the answer is that, and I'll explain what risk is because people generally don't know what you mean when you say risk. Like, why are you high risk? But it's a spectrum, and as soon as the card isn't present, the likelihood of fraud goes through the roof. So if somebody wants to steal a credit card and use it, are they going to walk into a store to buy things? No, probably not. They're probably doing it online, right, or over the phone. So immediately fraud goes up. But beyond that, they look at, our industry looks at the statistical likelihood of dispute of a consumer disputing a charge. Now, if we back out for 2 seconds or 34, the risk in general is that as consumers, one of the cool things about using credit cards is if there's ever a problem, you can just dispute it, right? You always have that recourse. Now, here's the risk. The business owner, the first thing that happens when a dispute happens is the money gets pulled out of the business owner's account. And then they get to fight to get it back. If the business isn't there anymore, the credit card processing company has to pay for it. So the big risk for a credit card processing company is a business goes under. And once they go under, consumers still have 6 months to dispute a charge. So for that 6 months, any disputes that come in, the credit card processing company has to pay. So all of it revolves around the likelihood of a specific business or an industry having that problem.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't think about a business closing and that trailing 6 months. I've never thought about that from a risk standpoint. Only really thought about while the business was in business accepting credit cards.
Yeah, well, and think about it this way. How often do businesses go under?
Yeah, all the
like
time.
all of them. All of them. I mean, how long? Like every business at some point ends its life cycle, right? The vast, vast, vast majority. So at a minimum, the credit card processor is exposed during that frame. And that's where like risk is a spectrum, because on the front end, you're just looking at that, right? But as you go through it, then it's like, okay, well, what kinds of industries have a higher likelihood of going under, or just having consumers dispute in general, or the combination, or fraud in general, right?
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. So being in a risky category or being deemed as high risk, is there anything that people can do, right, to still get good rates, to still get good status, to protect themselves? What do you tell people?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'd say that if you're just selling widgets on the internet, you're on the risk spectrum, but you're not super high. But as soon as that widget turns into a type of widget that is judged more heavily, CBD, then you are higher on the risk spectrum. The other thing that weighs heavily in is the type of marketing you do. So if I do, and I'll answer your question directly, but I think it's helpful for people to get it, because sometimes, like, we get a lot of people that come through and they're like, no, we're not high risk. And I'm thinking, like, nobody wants to be called high risk, right? But in my head, I'm like, you are so squarely in this horribly risky profile. I know you don't want to be called that, but you are. So I think understanding it helps. So, if you, I could write a 200-page ebook and I could sell it for $7, right? And it would have a certain risk profile. I could take the exact same 200 pages, I could read them in a video form and do a membership course that's $50 a month or $300 a month. Totally different risk profile, likelihood of chargeback. I could take the exact same information and do a seminar and charge, and literally read this ebook verbatim and charge $5,000. But it's happening 3 months from now and it's $5,000. So the dispute profile changes. I could read the exact same information from the ebook in a course at Harvard and charge whatever it is, $70,000 a semester, and the risk profile is different, right? So the marketing model has a lot to do with it. And the bitch of it is that even if you are perfect, if your business is perfect, you've never had a dispute, never had a refund, you still sit in potentially an industry that has an issue. And so the people that are looking at risk and controlling risk, if they're not really good at what they do, it's very easy for them to just do a sweeping change and say, hey, we're done with your industry. So if you're a business, the first thing to know is, like, where are you on that spectrum, right? Is your marketing model something that your competitors generally have challenges with chargebacks, or your product type or whatever? So you want to know that first. Second, because if you know that and you know that you're on the higher end of the spectrum, your first priority is not rates. It's making sure you have a stable account that's not going to get closed, or multiple stable accounts. If you are on the spectrum, but you realize you're lower on the spectrum, then you can say, hey, I want to drive a little bit better rate, or I want to get the best deal possible. The course of action there, either way, is to look for the providers that understand your business model. And you know that because when you go to sign up, they ask you about your business model. If you go to sign up and they don't ask you anything about your business model, necessarily it means that they didn't control for risk, right? So, like, Stripe and PayPal are great products if you're trying to vet a business concept, or you have a tremendously low risk business. But necessarily in their model, they didn't do any underwriting. So they don't know who you are, what you do, how you operate, what you sell, how you sell it, how you deliver it, if you deliver it, right? So the only way they can protect themselves against this threat is closing your account or holding your money.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And a bunch of merchant account providers operate that way too, because it helps conversion on the front end, right? If you can get people in and set up their accounts immediately and just deal with the risk later, great, you board more business. I just don't think that's the best solution for the entrepreneur.
Yeah. So you're looking for somebody that has a vetting process and asks about the business model, because then they're doing kind of their due diligence on the front instead of doing it on the back when you cause a problem or they see something they don't like. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So when you talk about chargebacks or refunds, obviously, chargebacks on your account, refunds on your account aren't good things necessarily. Is there kind of general rule of thumb about what's acceptable in the industry in terms of refund rate, chargeback rate? Like, are there KPIs that a business owner should be like, hey, team, we need to focus on keeping these rates under these certain levels?
Yeah, totally. So chargebacks are the easy one to address, which is Visa and MasterCard both have set programs for excessive monitoring. And those are made for systemic chargeback problems. So like MasterCard has a program that is, if your chargebacks are at 0.9% and 100 chargebacks a month for 2 consecutive months, MasterCard is going to monitor you. And that's like the hard, fast, nobody gets around it, concrete rules. And what happens is when a business owner gets put in that category, the credit card processing company gets fined every day for keeping you on the books. So there's tremendous disincentive to keep you on the books. Now, if you're doing enough volume and the margin is big enough on your account, and that's a big if, and this is where you don't want the cheapest rates possible if you have chargeback problems. You want to leave margin there because you want the processor to have incentive to keep working with you. Otherwise, you get put on that list and the processor's like, yeah, fuck all this. They're risky and I'm not getting any money. Not worth it, But if they say, hey, there's risk that popped up and we started getting fined, but we're making a bunch of money on this account, then maybe they'll keep you there. So you've got the concrete Visa and MasterCard rules. Go ahead.
Is that fine called something? Is there like a term for that?
Yeah, well,
like, is it classified as something?
Yeah, the MasterCard historically has had what's called the excessive monitoring program, excessive monitored merchant, or excessive chargeback merchant, and then monitored merchant. And they actually rolled out a couple new programs more recently, but it's the same idea. And then the fees related to that go to the credit card processor are, internal. But that's relevant for larger businesses because it's got that, one of the criteria is the 100 chargebacks a month. So if you're doing a high transaction business, that becomes relevant. A lot of entrepreneurs, though, a lot that we work with are in the 1 to 10 million a year range, where they don't have enough transactions where 100 chargebacks a month is going to happen, unless they have a low dollar amount with that. So the other thing that's really relevant is most credit card processing companies, we use the benchmark of 1%. And we just say, hey, if your chargebacks approach 1%, that's when you start to get in hot water. And it depends on the provider, but the 1% rule is a good rule to live by. That's like any entrepreneur can look at their numbers and say, oh, well, shoot, I'm at 1.5%. That matters for every credit card processing company out there. They'll look at that and that'll be a consideration. In terms of refunds, that's a fun question because in the info product space, if you have 20% refunds, that's maybe a little high, but pretty normal. If you have a coffee shop and you have 20% refunds, you better shut that shit down. Like you were doing something weird with your coffee, So it's very dependent on the industry that you're in and the marketing model, right? If you sell information and you do straight sale and it's a $7 ebook, the refund rate would be expected to be different than if you do a recurring product that has a free trial on the front end, and then you get charged $100 a month in perpetuity after that, right? That's going to be a higher refund rate and chargeback rate.
Yeah, the perspective there is really interesting. Never thought about it like that, but you're exactly right. So, fun merchant story time. So,
love it.
When I first started marketing online, was before like Shopify and anything else, and so I started doing e-com back in the day with a product called OS Commerce, if you remember that shopping cart. And
Sure.
I had a bunch of different e-commerce sites, and one of them we were drop shipping all the brands except for one on this e-commerce store, this widget store. And 80% of our sales came from these products that were drop shipped that we only made like a 20 or 30% margin on. And after shipping, it was next to nothing. And this other product we actually carried in-house and we made a 80 or 90% margin on. So we would let people order and then we'd try to convince them, right, to take the other product instead, right? So, I mean, you could basically call it a bait and switch, but we were running it incorrectly because I was so green to businesses and merchant accounts. And so we were literally charging the customer, and like 80% of the time they would take the upsell, but we did it on the phone after. So it was literally 80% of the purchases were getting refunded and then charged a different amount. And you can probably guess what happened.
Wow. Yeah.
So we got blacklisted. I don't know what the term is.
Match.
So we got that and then basically had a hell of a time getting any other merchant account to even look at us. But it was really just a problem in me understanding the business. I could have very easily, as a business owner, handled it differently, and I would have never been in that risk scenario.
Yeah. Well, but I think that those are like, that's a really good story, and it opens a really good lesson for your audience, because look, if there are, without question, just super shady business owners out there that are deliberately trying to game the system. And we know that happens. That's true in any space and anything you do. But the vast majority just don't know the rules and don't really care. Like they don't want to know the rules. They just want to make money and make their business work, right? And it's like, I just want the payment thing to work. But it's so helpful to understand the context because it helps you as a business owner make better decisions, right? Have self-awareness to make better decisions. So those things are super, super, super common. Your provider should be able to look at you when you go through that and help you with those scenarios, not pass judgment on you for what you did. And unfortunately, 99% of the providers out there operate like Stripe and PayPal, where it's like, everything was cool because we weren't looking at you. Now we're looking at you and it's a problem. Close that shit down.
Yeah, I mean, and it was like we were doing it for a year at the same rate, no higher, no lower, 70 to 80% of the transactions, and never said anything. And then it was just gone and then blackballed one day. And the worst part is we were in due diligence for an exit. So literally selling the business and then got blackballed, and then couldn't get a merchant account and couldn't get the revenue back online. And so the whole deal fell apart. And it took me about another 18 months to actually offboard and get rid of the company that I was trying to sell because of the lapse in revenue.
Wow. Oh, it's brutal, man. Yeah, and the list you're talking about is called the match list. It's member alert to control high risk. And it is one of the more serious types of blacklists because everybody in our industry has to check it before we are allowed legally to board a merchant account. So we have to do this check where we say, hey, is this person on the list? Another term for the match list is the TMF, the terminated merchant file. They're synonymous, but we have to check it. And it is extensive. So it's like your full name, social security number, address, URLs, previous known business associates, email addresses. And I mean, people pop on that thing that like we had somebody show up as a matched merchant, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. Only reason he was on it is because he had a business owner 7 years ago that got put on the match list for an unrelated business, but he showed up. Yeah. And and so like we got to dig into that and find that out and resolve it. But most providers don't take the time to do it. It's like once you're on it, it's really hard to get off of. Legal recourse is the action there, but that's still 50-50.
So hopefully a lesson everybody can take away. Don't get on that match list. Pay attention. Try to work with a provider like Brad or somebody else that'll actually give you advice and look at your accounts and not just actually do the underwriting, right? Like take you through a process instead of just giving you the little flick at the end because they don't like you. It was really rough and it really impacted my business and my livelihood for the next couple of years being on that matched list.
Huge. And most people, you're going to be on it for 5 to 7 years if you do nothing else. And then hopefully after 5 to 7, you'll get taken off, you'll drop off. But we have a couple banks that we work with that will look at why somebody was put on the match list, and we can board them even if they are on the match list. But it's case by case, and it's just a horrible pain in the ass. So as with most things, the issue is easier to solve on the front end, and just avoid getting put on it. Make sure that you pay attention, and like you said, it's really working with the people that do underwriting on the front end. So when you're going through like think about it like a mortgage. Like you go through and you want the house. You go through the underwriting process, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. But once you have the mortgage, you're good, right? As long as you pay it. You want merchant accounts to be the same way. So let the underwriters do their job, ask the questions, and that gets into the nitty gritty of who's good at underwriting. But it's a good rule of thumb.
So we talked about Visa and MasterCard specifically with chargebacks. Obviously, American Express has always historically, at least to my understanding, sided with the consumer a lot more when it came to chargebacks. Is that still kind of the state of the market today? Or how are they different or similar to Visa and MasterCard?
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on how nerdy you want to get about payments. But high level, I say Visa and MasterCard just because they have 92% of the market. So that's the language that I tend to use. I clump all the card brands in there when I say that. All of them at this point in the game are issued by banks or can be issued by a bank, meaning that like if you want a Visa, you could get a Visa from Chase, Bank of America, Capital One, etc. Historically, if you wanted an American Express, you get it from American Express.
Yeah.
No banks are issuing it. So we refer to our space as the bank card industry for that reason. Amex has always been its own creature and has self-identified as a consumer, a high-level consumer brand. And they still are. They take care of consumers more than the other card brands do. And as a result, you're more likely as a consumer to win a dispute on an Amex than you are other cards.
Speaking of disputes and fighting disputes, is there a goal of how often you should win a dispute? Because I feel like anymore it's hard to win disputes, even if you provide all the proof, even if like you were in the right, you can prove it, IP address, terms of service, like everything. And it's still like, what the hell? What do you mean we didn't win that dispute? Like, it's obvious. What's the state of affairs with chargebacks, and should you fight them? What should your expectations even be?
Yeah, it's a broad question too, because it depends on the industry that you're in, right? And the frequency with which you get the chargebacks and what types of chargebacks you're getting. So if you get chargebacks that are all labeled fraud, you've got a tech issue. You need a filter on your checkout process that scrapes fraud, that prevents fraudulent transactions from going through. And so many softwares do this. Our gateway does it, but many softwares do it. If you're getting actual disputes from consumers because the product wasn't delivered as expected, for example, the first thing to know is that going back to that 1% rule, whether you win the chargebacks or lose the chargebacks, they still count towards the 1%. So if you have a chargeback problem,
interesting,
you got to eliminate getting them. Fighting them doesn't matter. You got to cut it off early. And there is a inverse relationship between refunds and chargebacks. If you make refunds easier, you get less chargebacks. So that's your first line of action. If you truly are like modifying things and you're growing at the right rate and you're happy with everything and you're still getting some chargebacks and you're doing enough volume where they're just, you got to deal with them and you want the money, how you win them is what you just said. It's collect the IP address, get the terms of service, and keep your process tight. Some credit card processing companies make it easier than others to file the disputes and manage the dispute process. There are third-party companies that will do it for you also, like Chargebacks 911 or Chargeback Guru. The challenge with them inherently is that they are incentivized to fight the chargeback as opposed to prevent them. Right. So they have an inverse incentive to what you actually want, which is to never get the chargeback in the first place. The best tools out there are most credit card processing companies have access to them. We try to set them up for any large merchant, but Verify and Ethica are these products for chargeback alerts. And they're both owned by Visa and MasterCard. But the way they work is when a chargeback comes in, the bank, so let's say Bob has a Chase Visa and he disputes a charge. As soon as he disputes it with Chase, that network, Ethica or Verify, pings the credit card processing company, who then pushes the alert down to you and says, hey, Bob disputed the charge, and it happens in real time. So you get it right away. You then get a short window of time where you get to choose to refund the charge or not. And if you refund it, it never turns into a chargeback. So that's a huge, huge tool for people that have a chargeback issue.
We're definitely under 1%. I would say maybe 0.5%, 0.25%, something like that. And we have very tight TOS and everything else, and we still don't win them. We show that people logged in, they accessed their purchase, they agreed to the terms of service, and it's like, oh, I didn't authorize that charge, or I didn't get the product, and we don't win most of them. So it's really interesting that you say that. I think, we would definitely probably be in lieu to just give the refund when they came in and it hit, just to not have to deal with all of the data that they want and then still losing it anyway. I just rather give the refund and not have to deal with it. It's just not worth the hassle almost to me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, why have that be a chunk of your business to go after that when you can let's just stick with happy customers. You don't want it, fine.
Love it, man.
Thanks for tuning in and showing me the nuggets. If you've been enjoying the podcast and find our content helpful, please visit our Apple Podcast page, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a review. Joe and the whole team have been working hard to bring more value to the show. Your feedback will go a long way in helping us make the show better and reach a wider audience.